2021 Danvers School Committee meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Next is our Danvers Public Schools mission statement. The Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast on Danvers Community Access Television, and I don't believe anyone in the audience is recording tonight, since we don't have anyone in our audience tonight. We are going to do things a little differently than what our normal structure is tonight. We're going to start with our workshop, which we've held the past several months to get updates from the Public Health Department on COVID-19 statistics. So with that, I will turn things over to Mark Cleo for an update.
So I think we'll actually, Mr. Thompson, if it's okay, start with myself and we'll run through some of the statistics first and then...
That is what I meant to say. We'll start with Mr. Javerna with an update.
If you just give us 1 second, we just want to make sure we have the right... So yes, Mary, do you want to pull up the other one? Yeah, we're just going to quickly scroll through. The report that you have in here has our year-to-date infographics, and typically we just spend this meeting looking at the last month's worth. Mm-hmm. So link to your agenda is the whole thing, but obviously we start with our mitigation strategies each month, and a reminder to all of our families of what we like to, or what we ask for mitigation strategies. And then we are going to jump in. Okay, right here. So we run through the data that Mary has up on the screen for us. For the week of 2/11, there was 82 new cases for the community. There were 0 cases in our elementary and secondary level. The positivity rate was 3.36%, and 6% of our cases were under the age of 18 with 0 school-based spread. If we go on to the next week, looking at the week of 2/18, you'll see a decrease in the total town cases to 69, with 2 of them in the elementary level, 0 at the secondary, no school-based spread, and a 3.19% positivity rate. You'll see that the percent of cases under the age of 18 goes up to 12%. And this is a trend that we'll see while there's no more cases in our school-based population, the actual numbers stay the same. We'll see a fluctuation in that percentage of what they make up of the positive cases in the town. So for the week of 2/25, we see the cases further drop to 58 townwide, with 1 case at the secondary level, no school-based spread through our contact tracing, a 3% positivity rate, and 19% of the cases in students under the age of 18. And then for the week of 3/4, 45 cases townwide, with 1 case at the secondary level, a positivity rate of 2.56%, and 16% of the cases under the age of 18 and no school-based spread. So you'll see there's a nice steady decline with very minimal cases in our schools. And then Mary, if you keep scrolling, this is a graph, and I think I'll turn it over to Mark here. This is from one of Mark's weekly reports of COVID-19 cases by age for the school-aged cases. So you'll see that they remain in raw numbers on the downward trend from where we were at the peak. But I'll turn it over to Mark for any other additional feedback that he has.
Sure. So if a picture is worth 1,000 words, I'm not really sure what an infographic is worth, but it really did most of the speaking for me. I'm not sure what more I could even say. The numbers are trending in a wonderful direction that we're very pleased to see. A lot of this is due, of course, to the mitigation strategies, which is, wearing your mask and social distancing and all of the things that have been incorporated into school policies, but even in policies out just in the public at large and businesses, and they're working. Throw in the vaccination, which is increasing week by week, and these numbers will just continue to improve. So much so that the state is now moving ahead with some of the phased reopening plans, as we're seeing restaurants, capacity limits being removed, and it's just now social distancing. as well as now even talking about phase 4, March 22nd, the new normal. To hear that announced was just tremendous. In terms of the cases in Danvers, they're following the trends pretty much in almost every community across the state. They're trending downwards. The number of active cases continue to go down week by week. Our percent positivity continues to go down every single week, which is a good indicator. The activity in the hospitals is improving. Really, pretty much every marker that we have, things are looking better. And it would be difficult to see, now that we have those mitigation strategies in place full-time, they're working, and we have a really good understanding of how this disease transmits, and I think that, we're really getting a solid handle on this, a full year into it. There was a lot to learn over the course of the year. There was certainly a lot of mistakes made, maybe some false starts in some areas. Everybody can, second guess just about anything that was done, but where we are now, things are looking pretty good. In terms of the school age cases here in particular, this was always kind of a tricky one to express. Because when we would express school age cases, people would often take that as transmission within the schools, and so we always had to issue it with this little footnote talking about how this could be private schools, this could be sports cases, this could be travel, it could be any number of things besides the schools. And although we do see where they peaked pretty high in, around December or so, I believe. As they started dropping down, they moved pretty slowly, but we're down, I think, about probably as low as we're going to see for the time being. Certainly in a manageable range where we're able to get to these cases in time and make sure everybody is isolating and quarantines are issued and everybody is staying safe. I guess with that, if there's any particular questions beyond the summary there, I'd be happy to answer any.
And I do know Mark has offered to stay through our educating during the pandemic and recommendations, should there be any questions then. And we've also invited the union leadership to stay as well through that part of the agenda. So
Excellent.
depending on where questions fall.
We're going to go around and ask questions. I just have a question first, though, only because I can't see it based on how the screen is showing. What do the blue and the yellow lines represent? The key is kind of covered.
Sure. We broke our ages down, the youth. We broke it into 0 to 10 and 11 to 18. So we could get kind of a better idea as to elementary school versus other. And we did the same as well. We did 19 to 24, so that we could kind of pick up that college age as well.
Yeah.
Versus the rest of our age groups are just by decade.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. I just wasn't able to read that.
Yeah, so I believe the orange, you'd think after looking at these things and compiling these numbers for months, I'd remember. I believe the orange is 0 to 10 and the blue is 11 to 18.
Looks like
I
the
got that
other-
backwards, excuse me. Blue is the 0 to 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's do some questions. Kathleen Murphy, do you want to start?
So I just have one question for Mark, I guess. Up till now, my experience has been if there's somebody in the classroom that's COVID positive, anyone within 6 feet of that student for 15 minutes or more has been asked to quarantine. Do you anticipate that changing? And if it doesn't change, what does that mean if we have, say, a 3-foot or a 4-foot distance between students and there's a COVID positive case? Do you anticipate more students having to go out in quarantine under those circumstances?
Well, it depends. So we generally have followed the state guidance pretty much right from the outset, and it's served us well. The World Health Organization is saying that 3 feet is adequate, and current state guidance is 6 feet, and then we'll see where that's, how that changes as this evolves. I wouldn't be able to say for certain. It depends on what the Department of Public Health, if they determine that, okay, yes, if you're doing 3 feet, you still have to do it, then we would follow the 6-foot rule. We would just, so whatever the state guidance says is what we're going to follow.
So I guess,
That has not changed.
Our isolation and quarantine guidance is still at 6 feet.
right, so when we start, if school committees vote in the recommendation, we talk about that later, we will have more close contacts than we've had in the past. In the immediate, again, as Mark said, we've also heard through CDC that there could be revised quarantine requirements coming down, but until those get, usually it's passed by CDC and then it comes to the Mass Department of Public Health and then they adopt it, which is then when it comes to DESE. So until kind of all those steps take place, there will be an increase in the number of quarantined students based on the reduced spacing.
Okay, great. Jody?
My question is also around close contacts, but in a different way. Now that K-12 education staff is finally almost, thanks to CBS, we have about 70 to 80 staff members that we know have either been fully vaccinated, partially vaccinated, or at least have appointments this week. So we're on the right track with vaccinations. There's been conflicting information coming out regarding if you are fully vaccinated and you are a close contact of somebody who is COVID positive, what that means. Do you have to quarantine or do you not have to? We've heard one thing sort of from the CDC is saying one thing, and then like you said, Mass DPH is sometimes along those lines, but we've heard that they're being more conservative. And I know CDC released some information today, so you might not have the latest, most up-to-date, but I guess as staff is becoming vaccinated, what does that mean for us if we do end up as a close contact?
Sure. So yeah, the CDC did issue new guidance today, and that does say that you would not need to quarantine if you're a contact, if you're vaccinated. So DPH though, Mass DPH, will take that guidance under advisement, review it, make sure that it is scientifically valid, and then we'll issue their own guidance. As it stands right now, DPH says that even if you are vaccinated, you still have to quarantine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Kathleen? No questions? Okay. Arthur?
All set, thanks.
Mary Beth?
I'm sure I know the answer, but I know some other school districts have been trying to coordinate vaccination clinics based upon getting vaccines from certain places. I'm just wondering, from the health department here in town, has there been any opportunity getting vaccines to hold a clinic, or?
Sure. So an opportunity, not really, but we're exploring some avenues to see what we could get done to expedite the process. I don't want to put any false hopes out there, though. Unfortunately, the state made a decision to deprioritize us as of March 1st, and we were not able to get the first doses. If we could have, we would have been having a clinic.
Great. Thank you.
Jeff?
No questions, thank you.
Eric?
Mark, excuse me, when Governor Baker initially announced some loosening of restrictions, restaurant capacities being increased, some public health officials immediately sort of came forward and said maybe he's moving too quickly. I tell him he needs to be careful about that. Obviously, there is concern that as we open up more, cases will increase. And I guess my question is, clearly, and I think it's a chance for you to say it publicly, we still want people not to get a false sense of security at this point, right? We need people to still be social distancing, still wearing masks, still doing what we've done, even as we start to open up a little bit. Is that a reasonable thing to say?
Absolutely, that's reasonable, yes. So those are, I had mentioned the mitigation strategies that we have found that really, truly work most of the time, as best as they can. Those are going to remain in place for some time. I don't think that we're going to be taking our masks off anytime soon.
Second question is in terms of the variants that we're seeing. And there are 2 or 3 different variants now countrywide that we're seeing. How is that looking in terms of the Northeast, Massachusetts, Danvers? That's how are we seeing increased incidence of the variants? Any concerns there?
Yep. So there have been reports of variants that have been found in Massachusetts residents. Some of them at increasing rates. Is it a particular concern? Not necessarily, because our understanding of those right now, they're still able to be controlled with the existing mitigation strategies. And the understanding of how well does the current lots of vaccine work against them is not well understood yet. But we don't have reason to believe that they would not be effective.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
How about the administration? Lisa, any questions for Mark?
All set, thank you.
Keith?
All set, thank you.
Mary?
All set.
I am all set as well.
Actually, Dave, I just have one comment. Over the weekend, I was listening to a podcast. The New York Times does one. It's called The Daily. And I think it might have been last Thursday's podcast talking about getting vaccinated and the variants and COVID. It was a good listen. So if anyone was interested in listening to it in the community or within the schools, it really explained it quite well. So I just wanted to pass that information on.
This was called The Daily?
Yeah, it's called The Daily, New York Times.
Yep.
The Daily, it's like a 25-minute podcast. It was very good, very informative.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anything else to add, Mark?
I believe that's it. I appreciate the invitation, of course.
No, thank you for joining us all these months, and it's so great to see that these numbers are trending in the right direction. So thank you for everything you and your team are doing to make that happen. So with that, we will move right into our regular agenda with some unfinished business.
I don't think we can. We're not scheduled to start until 7, right?
No, we had a 6:30 start tonight.
We
I
did
believe.
rearrange the agenda, so that way.
Okay.
Actually, the time that was posted was 6:30.
Okay.
And we put the workshop within the meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for that clarification. And I think it's the theme of this year as we continue to learn in our new processes. So from our last time there was a vote, we decided to try to switch things to have them flow throughout the meeting.
Right.
And be able to have our union leadership and our public health director stay with us if there are additional questions during the time before the school committee votes on our next steps. So since there is a vote, what we would normally do would be the superintendent would read the motion for the school committee, and then we will do the presentation, and then it comes back to the school committee for your discussion and vote at that time on the motion.
Perfect.
So, at this point, the superintendent recommends the elimination of hybrid learning. All families will have the option to choose between full in-person learning or full remote learning for the remainder of the academic year. Additionally, the superintendent recommends students in grades K-5 to return to 5 days per week of in-person learning on March 29th, 2021, and that students in grades 6 through 12 return to 5 days per week of in-person learning on April 5th, 2021, and that the school committee enters into impact bargaining with the DPS unions.
So moved.
Second.
We
Thank
have
you.
a motion and a second for discussion.
Great, thank you very much. So for the presentation, we'd like to take an opportunity, it's about 4.5 minutes, to show you a video first and to share it with the community. We've missed our Danvers Pride presentations this year, and with the support of Whitney in our office, she was able to put this together from the many photos that have been taken and music from our own students and faculty over the last year. And it will just take us one moment to make sure we have the volume.
her hair falls perfectly without her trying. And she's so beautiful, and I'll tell her every day. Oh, you know, I never ask you to change. If perfect's what you're searching for, then just stay the same. So don't even bother asking if you look okay. You know what I'll say when I see your face. There's not a thing that I would change, 'cause you're amazing, just the way you are. And when you smile, the whole world.
Here comes the sun, doo doo doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright.
Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since spring's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Thank you. So in a little over 4.5 minutes to be able to really take a snapshot of seeing the faces of learning in the Danvers Public Schools during a pandemic. This next piece is really the technical pieces, but I want to say how grateful we are for the creativity of our teachers, the partnership with our families, and the resiliency of our students as we continue to move through this year, and you see that in that video.
The technical pieces of making all of this work is the way we have adapted to using our mitigation strategies. So we continue to show this and live by it with our masks, physical distancing, hand washing, and staying at home when we're sick. As we move forward in making this recommendation to school committee this evening, the mitigation in there, as was discussed during the workshop, there are some implications in moving forward to coming back in person fully. We will continue to maximize our spacing in our classrooms to the extent possible, so the 6 feet remains our goal. We will continue to decrease that in increments with no less than 3 feet between the students' desks. 6 feet for lunch and mass breaks, or the use of the plexiglass dividers per DESI. We received just late this afternoon that DESI will continue to provide guidance as of tomorrow in another meeting with superintendents and central office personnel on Wednesday of this week. So I'm sure there will be weekly updates as we continue to move through this spring. And our goal is for busing. Also, we met with the policy subcommittee this afternoon to maintain our reduced busing capacity to ensure that spacing throughout this school year. As we continue with these core mitigation strategies, we're going to continue and add new protection strategies. So CDC has updated to the 5 mitigation strategies, continuing with mask, distancing, hand washing, cleaning, and then adding the contact tracing to really make sure, and we do have that strong contact tracing here in Danvers with our public health department. The cleaning schedule will change, and Keith can answer specific questions from the committee about that, but we will be starting on the Wednesday afternoons and then continuing at the end of the week with a cleaning schedule. The physical distancing, as we had said, that is the one that changes. That's the major change. So as that becomes a variable from the 6 to the 3 feet with the reduced spacing. We will, but we also then add, where that is being lessened, we add the piece that our pre-K to 12 staff are eligible for the vaccinations as of March 11th this week through the mass vaccination sites, and then currently through the federal pharmacy program there. And we do believe that there are continuing meetings at the state level to hopefully have possibly some other announcements this week. But we will see what happens there. So it was also mentioned earlier, the increase in the contact tracing and the close contacts could be a possibility as we move forward with reduced spacing. Okay. This now, Mary?
All right. So as you can imagine, as we start to bring more students back in for full in-person learning, there are going to be a lot of logistics that go along with that, and one of the larger one is looking at how many students are going to be in the classrooms and the schedules. So at each level, they are looking at combining cohort A and cohort B together to bring them back into the classrooms. At that point, we have to look at the capacity of the classrooms and how many students can be in there, and then start to think about if the number of students in a classroom are too large, we might have to think about adding another section of a course or reworking some schedules. So at the elementary level, grades 4 and 5 to return, they are looking right now at the class sizes and looking at the schools for spacing and how many students can be in each classroom. We are looking at different various scenarios. All of these measures as we go forward, even at the middle and high school, are also going to be contingent on knowing how many students are coming back at full in person. So as you hear from us, we're going to be sending out a survey, which is really a commitment form for families, where they will be committing to which model they will return to school in. So will they be in the fully in-person model, or will they be in the fully remote learning model? So getting that data is going to be extremely important to our plan, so we need that to come back. I think when we send out the survey tomorrow morning, we're going to be looking for a Thursday afternoon return this week. And it's, again, I urge parents to really, as soon as they get the emails, is to return that information to us as soon as they can. At the middle school and high school, they are also as well combining cohorts A and B, and they're looking at the schedule imbalances and the number of students and the teaching load. So these numbers, especially at Holton Richmond, because of the way they set up their hybrid model, was a very strong hybrid model for them. there's some imbalances in the schedules for some of the teams. So as kids come back and there are a large number of students that cannot fit in a classroom, may have to rework some schedules. So student schedule and teacher schedules may be changing. And the same thing, I'm at the high school, and they're really looking at space and what classrooms can handle some of the larger size classrooms. So again, I can't say it enough how much this family survey, the information coming from this family survey is important to us making our plans and getting this done in a timely fashion, because we will be returning students at the elementary 4th and 5th graders on March 29th, and then 6th through 12 will come back on April 5th. So again, it's a short time frame to be doing lots of this logistics, but we're sure that we can have this happen. The student schedules are going to be the normal schedules. So for secondary, it's going to be 7:30 to 1:55, and the elementary is going to be 8:20 to 2:30. And we will be having early release days on the first Wednesdays of April, May, and June, just like we would normally have in the school year. If a student is changing their learning model, like they're coming from full remote into full in-person, they will have a schedule and teacher change at that point. And the same thing if someone decides to go from full in-person or in-person hybrid into a full remote program, they will have a teacher change at that time. So the survey form will be sent out tomorrow morning, and then again, as I said, we're looking for it to come back Thursday afternoon by 4 p.m. And then we look forward to having our grades 4 and 5 students back in on March 29th and have our whole 6 through 12 group in on April 5th. And one other last point is that this is going to be the last opportunity for families to make a change in the learning model, because we will only have about 8 weeks of school left by the time we make that shift.
So we wanted to spend a few minutes talking about what our seniors and what their kind of capstone and what the end of their high school career looks like. Each year over just the past recent years, we've been having an internship or capstone experience. So for this year coming up, as we look at our late start to the school year and this non-traditional year, and as we are able to bring all students back together for the end of the year, we are looking just to make some small tweaks to that timeline and process. Each student will get to choose from an internship or a capstone project that align with their own definition of success and their college and career goals. If students are to be completing a capstone project, the proposal is to have them start that project on May 17th and attend classes until that time. If students do have an internship lined up, we do encourage them to be pursuing internships, but obviously during a pandemic, that process is slightly difficult. They are welcome to start that internship prior to May 17th. They would just need to work with the high school administration for what their internship will be and for approval of that. So we really do, if they have a robust internship, we do encourage them to start that per the traditional timeline after April vacation. AP classes will continue to run as scheduled until the AP exam date. We would like to thank our senior students for their advocacy and their inquiry into what the end of the year will look like. And we just wanted to make sure we did share that the AP exams, those are scheduled by the College Board and not locally by Danvers. So some of those dates are into early June, which is much later than they typically are. We believe it was the College Board's attempt to allow them to get the most in-person class time possible before taking those exams, so we are adhering to that schedule. So again, the capstone experience and internship will run from May 17th to June 3rd with the virtual learning celebration on June 4th as we get to see everyone's project. And again, we're looking to provide an equitable and rigorous experience for all of our students. And again, I just want to highlight one more time that if you do have an internship that is beginning, please contact the high school administration and work with them. That internship can start after April vacation. So our next steps as we look at what work do we have to complete if we are to go with this recommendation over the coming weeks, we do need additional furniture. So at this point, we have ordered additional desks to use to ensure that we have distancing in place. DPW, thank you to David Lane, Rich Souza, Lee Frockna, and their teams. They're already ready to go, making plexiglass dividers and moving furniture back into the storage trailers. and helping us with all of those physical setups. We'll be looking at our class transitions, especially at the high school and middle school, having more students in the hallways. How do we have one-way hallways? How do we help with those transitions to ensure spacing? Lunchroom setups and schedules. So again, looking at our lunchrooms and at the elementary level, to date, we've had really the 6-foot social distancing. And at the high school, at the middle school, we've been using plexiglass barriers. Both are approved through DESE, so as we make the transition back, we'll be looking to introduce those plexiglass dividers really in K to 8 to allow us to fit more students and still have the mitigation in place. We'll be looking at student and staff schedules. Again, just to highlight on what Mary was saying, all of these changes really are based on what families' needs are, so especially at the elementary level. Even with the shift to 4 to 5, there may be some changes that come with K to 3 as families choose to change what their learning models are. So if in the past we may have had 30 students in kindergarten that were doing remote learning, 15 of those kids might have asked to come back in person. So now we only have 15 in the remote learning academy. It could result in some teaching changes as we look to balance that. So this will be our last time, but we have seen a significant shift from the remote learning academy into the in-person learning models at our elementary level over the last few weeks. Again, with the survey that's going to go out, this commitment form, this will be the last opportunity to change for the school year. So we just want to remind families of that. We'll be looking at the remote work assignment evaluation based on those class sizes and those teaching needs, looking at student arrival and dismissal. How do we encourage distancing in there? How do we help try to ensure that teachers get adequate prep time, and looking at those systems. We'll be looking at the second trimester for Holt enrichment in the third quarter for DHS, looking at the end dates of those time periods to align with the April 5th transition to in-person learning, so that if there are teacher changes needed, it's happening at the trimester or quarter mark, as we're adjusting those schedules to make that a little bit more natural. And then the last piece is just the cleaning schedule as well. We will be keeping a deep cleaning in place on Wednesday night. They'll be getting to all light switches, tabletops, high-touch surfaces. It will be a little bit less right now on Wednesdays. They're cleaning all of the table legs and some items like that. So they won't necessarily be able to get to that, but we will be not having any after-school activities on Wednesdays. So the buildings will close when students leave. So right now, per our MOU, teachers leave with the students on Wednesday afternoon, so that will continue. So that way it allows DPW to do a deep cleaning on that Wednesday afternoon, have an extended period of time in the buildings, and then the deep cleaning over the weekend and Friday night will continue as it has throughout the year, which will include desk legs and all of really those nitty-gritty details. But we will have an advanced cleaning on Wednesday night still. And then if we go back and shift back to what our recommendation was, and I do think we're just before we vote, if we could maybe redo our motion, we do want to say that we want to shift from hybrid learning and not eliminate. We just want to leave our options open should in the future, if there's a variant surge or something else that happens, we're not eliminating it. We're definitely shifting from hybrid learning to full in-person, but just with the unknown of this virus, we don't anticipate needing it. We just want to make sure we use language that articulates that clearly. So a shift from hybrid to full in-person learning. All families will have the options to choose between the two models for the remainder of this year. So if you're a full remote learning family, you still have that option to continue through the 2020-21 school year. Grades K to 5 to return 5 days a week for in-person learning on March 29th. Grades 6 through 12 to return for 5 days per week of in-person learning on April 5th. Grade 12 students to begin their capstone internship on May 17th. That will run for 3 weeks. Again, we'd like to highlight here that if students do have an internship, they can approach the high school administration, and that could begin after April vacation. And then that the school committee enter into impact bargaining with our various unions to have this change take place.
Thank you.
Great, thank you all. Questions, Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A number of questions. Some you've already covered. Let's see. So at this point, do we have any sense, the relative number of spaces where we'll be able to maintain 6 feet versus something less than 6 feet at this point?
I would say that we're beginning that assessment and looking at merging the cohorts now. I don't think I could tell you a percentage. I'll tell you that the vast majority of our K-3 classrooms that we have established at 6 feet right now will stay at 6 feet. Some of those will see a slight variation if there's more students that choose to shift from full remote to in-person. And then it really is gonna be along the spectrum between 3 and 6 feet. There's some cases where we know we would have been at below 3 feet, so it's gonna require some schedule changes, especially at the middle school and high school. But again, just the goal is to do the 6 feet. That's really what we're digging into once we get the vote of approval, is to really start moving the desks into the classroom to say, okay, on a piece of paper, if the room's 10 by 20, we say we can fit this many desks. When I actually go to do it, how many can I fit in here, at what distancing? So it's from over the summer, we learned that it's really a hands-on experience to figure out what those caps are. I will also say this is laying the groundwork for what we'll need to do next September. So we don't think all of this is gonna go away. Hopefully it's a more typical year next year, but it's still gonna be atypical to a certain extent. So we're working on setting those room capacities now, which will help us schedule for next year, which will provide some more stability as we look into the 21-22 school year.
And I think, I believe I heard Dr. Dana talk about, sort of incrementally approaching this. And so I take that to mean that, if 6 feet won't work, you're not just gonna go to 3 feet, you're gonna see if 5.5 feet will work, 5 feet, 4. So you're going to, obviously, as I understand it, you're going to try and get as much space. It's not just going to be, well, if we can't do 6, 3 is fine.
That is true, right? So it's the 6 feet where feasible. So we're going to begin with that and then work our way, and if needed, go to the 3.
It'll be the same working with individual teachers of if you have one block that has 22 kids and you're at 3 feet and you have the desk, but then you have an elective that only has 12 kids. Well, now we're going to work with you to make sure that you've assigned students to every other desk when you only have 12, so that in A, B, and D block, you might have 6 feet. And then in C and E block, you might have 4.5 because of how that works.
Okay.
But it's going to be like a block by block basis.
And I think you addressed the issue of deep cleaning that we were doing on Wednesdays. We're still going to do a lot of cleaning on Wednesdays. It may not be completely the same as it was, but ultimately the buildings are going to be cleaned thoroughly every week.
And they're cleaned thoroughly every night, right? So it's like Monday, Tuesday night is a normal clean, Wednesday night's a deep clean, and then Friday night and Saturday is a deeper clean. So it's all gradient. It's not that they're not cleaned each night.
Okay. What will be the status of, excuse me, any extracurriculars beyond sports? Are they going to be, is it going to be a return to clubs and that sort of thing, or is that still not something we're going to try and pull off?
So we've been running some clubs. So the theater has been meeting, band has been meeting, chorus has been meeting in person.
Okay.
So some of that remains. We'll still encourage some of those clubs to meet virtually when possible, but if they can do it in a socially distanced manner within kind of the new set of parameters, we're open to any and all proposals. We've been working with our advisors, and they kind of submit this is what my plan looks like for my extracurricular, and we work through it with them, and then they go off and implement it, including we're looking at right now a theater live presentation for the spring and how we can invite parents in to see their students perform in some really innovative way that they're coming up with different stations where you do a mini performance and there's 5 sets of parents, then you go to another spot and there's another group of parents. So we keep looking at how we can get those extracurricular and those natural interactions for
Okay.
kids.
Any anticipated change to something like sports schedules, or will those remain the same?
So we anticipate them staying the same for fall too. Again, we can keep that 6 feet of social distancing. So and throughout the whole NEC, there's 2 parents per home game that are allowed to attend the games. And we're working through a similar process. So I would anticipate that would stay for spring, that will stay with limited capacity based on family members.
Okay. I think you talked about the policy subcommittee meeting today to discuss busing issues and how to keep, so do you have any information as to how that will work? Because obviously if we're bringing everybody back every day, you trying to keep the capacity in buses, it seems to me, would mean adding additional bus runs or additional buses. I don't see how else it can work. So how is that actually going to work?
So thanks to Pam in my office, who's really been digging into these details. Mrs. Ames is the best. We believe that all of our registered bus riders that we have as of today and both cohorts will be able to fit on our existing bus routes with the capacities that we have. So we will be redoing a handful of our bus routes. So we might have had, I'm just gonna pick bus 4 at the middle school that had 10 kids on it in each cohort, and then we had bus 12 that had 20 kids in each cohort for the total of 40. So we might need to combine those two routes and break them back up. But we think that we can keep, with our capacity restrictions and the spacing, we can keep those distancings and have all students ride. We are starting, we've heard from a handful of parents that would like to register for the bus now, and we're starting to keep a wait list. So as we finalize that, we'll start to take students off of that wait list and place them onto the bus. So we're gonna collect that list over the next couple of weeks.
Okay. I would say that among the questions that we received the most email about has to do with the impact on all of this on students who are fully remote. You know, I didn't get a sense that anybody whose child was in hybrid was, you know, I didn't get any negative, hey, let's stay in hybrid and let's not come back full time. But I think what we all received was concerns from parents whose children are in full remote and have had a good experience, worried that at this point in the year, they're going to have to change teachers. And I think we need to address that tonight in terms of what the likelihood of that is. How is that going to work out as a practical matter?
So I would say we've already done that on probably 3 or 4 different occasions throughout this school year. So any shifts that occur from this vote, yes, it's partially caused by the shift that we're asking families to commit to for the rest of the year, but it's been a fluid situation throughout the whole school year. So we've already seen those shifts as we've made our past decisions based on what families' requests are for their learning model. So
Okay.
there could be shifts. We can't really tell you what those shifts will be until we see what the commitment forms look like when we send them out to families this week and what those responses are.
Okay. If I were a parent in that situation, my response would be, well, I don't want to choose the final model for my child unless I know what's going to happen in terms of their remote teacher. So you may have sort of a chicken and egg situation here. And I think a number of parents, if they knew the child was going to have the same teacher in their remote, and they like that teacher, they would opt to stay remote rather than come back, if nothing else, just for that reason. So I think the communication piece is going to be critical here in terms of the expectations of remote parents, because that's, it is a big issue for parents who are having a good experience with just a couple of months left in the school year, you know, being worried that their child's going to be bounced around. And I think it's critical that we get this right. There are going to be hiccups, there's no question. You can't do it, what we're talking about at the high school and middle school, without, in some cases, I'm sure, radically changing schedules. There are going to be some bumps in the road. There are going to be parents who are thrilled and parents who are not happy at all, which has been our experience the whole year, frankly. But, you know, be ready for trying to keep the chaos to a minimum for people, because it's really important to parents that kids who've already had a disruptive year have as little disruption going forward as possible. But to the parents, I say, look, there are going to be some changes. There's no way we can do this without some changes. So we ask you to be patient and helpful with us. The other question that you addressed it a little bit, and it's come up in a lot of emails, a number of seniors really want to start I had the sense they want to start either their internships and their capstone projects right after April vacation, so that their school year ends when traditional senior year schedules have ended. And this is going to be a bit of a change, right? For a student who doesn't have an internship in place, they will be going a little longer into the school year than in past years. Is that correct?
Yes, and that is really looking at a number of factors, that this is definitely has not been anywhere near a normal year. And we realize that for our senior class in particular, and we appreciate their flexibility, their resilience with us. The school year did start later this year, and as we look at the factors being put into play, for example, we've spoken about the Internships, there are not going to be as many that are available. So putting all of the factors together is where we have come to the proposal to start the majority of the changes with an internship capstone for May 17th. But again, if a student has an internship that they have been able to secure and are able to do that after April vacation, the high school administration will work with them. The high school administration has set up a senior family meeting for Wednesday, I believe, at 5:30. So that will be an opportunity for the high school administration to really go through all the details, ask questions, and again, we encourage our families, the seniors, to reach out to the high school administration to ask those specific questions.
Okay, good. So I would encourage any parents watching tonight, please avail yourself of that opportunity. Again, sometimes, we're going to do our best to make things work based on the hand we're dealt, so to speak. And really, my last comment, Mr. Chairman, is it does not seem to me at this point that we have much of a choice. The Commissioner of Education is going to impose upon us the requirement that we get students back to school full-time, albeit with an allowance for parents and families who want to keep their children remote. But any sort of hybrid learning plan is going to go away. And so I think the best that we can do, and it sounds to me like the plan you have put in place is very thoughtful. People will always have questions, but I get the sense that this is probably a thoughtful and good way to try and go about doing what we are now required to do. So in this instance, you'll have my support on this. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Eric. Jeff?
And that's with, did we have a snow day or something too?
We have not. We've been able to, I think twice we went to using the remote schedule.
Right, good, okay. So June 21st is still good. I mean, it's still a Monday, it still carries over, which it would be nice if it didn't, but that's okay. So based on the curriculum, based on the fact if we do in fact return to full in person, we had talked before about somewhat of the percentage of learning that we've had this year, that it maybe we haven't had as much time to teach the same curriculum. For the last 2 to 3 months, will we then be trying to go back to a normal pace and therefore accelerate what we've done? Or will we continue to be kind of on the trajectory and the pace that we've been with the asynchronous mode and with the hybrid or remote learning?
Thank you. It will change from being here from the 5 days. And Mary, would you be to
Yes,
give a
so-
highlight of that from your
yeah.
work in the curriculum center?
Right, so it will be accelerated because now we have more time in person, and at the secondary level, we'll have the 90-minute blocks for kids to be learning at, so we will have extra, more time for students to be learning in person with their teacher, and that thereby accelerating that learning.
And that'll be true for remote as well, so remote will accelerate as well?
Yes, they'll have more time with their remote teacher.
Okay, great. And then also, I didn't know if it was in here, but I know Peabody did the 6-foot spacing for teachers, right? Will we be attempting to implement that as well, I'm assuming?
This is,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. And then the last question is, lunch is now 5 days a week for many more people. That's still free and still covered with funds from somewhere.
is.
Hopefully it's $1.9 trillion is gonna
And we'll
provide
still
some
be
of that.
doing delivery options for remote families who are in need of lunch.
Perfect. Okay, great. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Jeff. Mary Beth?
All right, a few things. Let's see. So last week, was it Desi that came down that said that music can start again in the schools, provided like 10-foot distancing? Is that?
So many rules with music, but yes, indoor singing can happen with 10 feet of spacing and masks. They've allowed indoor instruments with 10 feet of spacing and bell covers for the last number of months, but the introduction of singing inside the school building.
So will we be able to institute that?
Yes, we'll work with our high school administration around scheduling spaces for the indoors. I do not anticipate that we'll be doing it at the middle school level or the elementary level at this time, just based on the number of schedule changes that would take place, but we are still having those conversations, that's not finalized, there's just a lot of details that go with, you know,
Sure.
staff coverage, student coverage, spacing, lunch, all of those interplays.
Okay, thank you. All right, remote teachers. So if we have to move some staff, remote teachers, back in based upon whatever the survey tells us, we're not adding like a brand new remote teacher to the remote program. We would just be consolidating the students. So it would be one, you know, maybe an example, there's a grade 4, there are 2 remote teachers, and if the numbers are not there to stay for 2 remote teachers, we would just, one potentially could go teaching back live, the other one would stay remote, and you're just consolidating the students to that one remote class or classes, correct? That would, so we're not like bringing in someone totally new and totally different and no one knows, right?
No, we're not hiring from the outside to do that
Right.
piece of it. I would say that this, again, is early in the process, so we can't make that 100% commitment that it may be a different grade level if someone needed to do that
Yeah.
piece of it, but it is our, just as you explained it, that would be what we would be looking at as the first step if needed.
Right, so it would be someone that has been doing the remote teaching.
Yes.
And I just want to go back, just to be clear for folks, with the reduction, the potential reduction in spacing between students, if there were a potential COVID case, potentially there could be more people that might have to quarantine, correct?
Yes.
Correct, Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And that is because, as of right now, the guideline is still the 6 feet, within 6 feet, within 15 minutes of someone that is COVID positive, correct?
Yes.
Okay. La, 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 la. And again, just to be clear, it's full remote or full in-person learning, but we would be keeping the option of hybrid in case something were to change.
Oh.
Like we're not doing away with hybrid, is that what you said, Keith? I mean, we're not keeping it currently, but if there was a surge and all of a sudden,
Should it statewide become required again? So
Yeah.
throughout this year, we've used the word to shift our learning model.
Yeah.
So, and if we go back to the first slide before we vote, we just changed the word to shift the learning model from hybrid to full in-person learning.
all right.
So just to go with how we've worded everything before, this is kind of we put it in the agenda before we got to the presentation, as we've just worked on, as all of this, right? It's a work in progress.
And I just wanted to be clear, because last week, when the commissioner was talking, he was like, hybrid's going away, like that, you know. So I just wanted to be clear, you know, what that meant.
I would say from our commissioner phone calls with superintendents and assistant superintendents in central office, he's used more of the words to shift from hybrid to full in-person,
Okay.
that there's no intention of going back to hybrid at
Okay.
the moment. We don't see it necessarily happening, but should there be a surge in the variant or something changes with this where the vaccine isn't, right, doesn't handle the variants and cases go back up,
Right.
you never know, obviously we've learned, we never know what the future would hold, so.
Right.
But there's not an intention or a plan or anything to go back to
Right.
hybrid learning at this
And I just want to make sure, because some of the news reports say, it's going away, and it is, but,
And my understanding, and this is just my personal understanding, is that he has the authority to, the board voted to give him the authority to change what learning models count for time on learning. So if he has the authority to shift that, he theoretically has the authority to shift it back, should there be a need at some point as this pandemic continues to evolve.
okay, thank you. If schedules will have to change for some, does that potentially mean a student could have a totally different class, or they have the same class but just a different teacher, different period? How would that potentially work? Is there thought to that, Mary?
Yeah, I think it's that if they keep the class, they may have a different teacher, just to keep the numbers in the
Oh,
classroom.
okay.
appropriate.
And that's on the secondary side. of things.
Secondary level, not yet.
Yeah. Can you just, the difference between the internship and a capstone?
So
Please.
the internship is where they're going out and working for an employer, and, you know, doing hands-on work to get experience in their field of interest. The capstone is more a educational-based project or a hands-on based project that they do as the culmination of their learning throughout their high school career, that they then write a paper to show that culmination. Similar to what might be like a thesis paper for a bachelor's or master's degree in similar fashion.
And they're still having seniors, they're still having conversations with administration regarding senior activity, end of year activities, just because the situation is very fluid, correct? So no particular thing has been said either way, yes or no, for any event.
I think we're hopeful by April 1st to have more of a formal announcement over what we see the end of the senior year looking like, but we do have some ideas, and we're working with a group of senior parents to vet some of those ideas and work with them to make it a meaningful experience for them.
Okay. Special education. So how will this, could this potentially mean we need more staff for the special ed classrooms, more aides if more special ed students are coming back, or are they already back in the schools? I don't know what the numbers.
I would say it probably runs the spectrum, right, as one of our first targets was to bring back our highest need students. So many of them are back in the district. There are some additional students that are obviously coming back that do need services as well. I don't believe we will need additional staff. I do mean it could mean that some schedules, like our regular educators and regular education, change. Some special education service schedules may change to make it work as we look at grouping and regrouping of students to make it run efficiently. But
Okay.
we would anticipate that everybody should receive their normal services once they're back.
Okay, that was my next question as far as specialists, would those services be able to, continue? Will they have space to provide their services, I guess, like they have in the past? They'll have some kind of spacing for them.
And it's kind of a game of musical chairs, right? We have one plan, and we had one plan, especially at the elementary level, that worked when it was K1. Then we had another plan when it was K3, and, we started to introduce music back into some of the music rooms in a socially distanced manner. And in some of these cases, depending on spacing and what we need for special education services, some of that might mean music goes back on a cart and goes back to the classroom, or they're going outside. And so the principals are working through all of those details.
Okay.
But again, the hope is that this is our last change, right? So as we get to March 29th, this is what we're locking in as our plan for the last 8 to 10 weeks of school. So despite all of these moves, hopefully we come up with some more stability to end the year after this round.
And if parents have any concerns regarding their students' services, if they're on an IEP, or they should, certainly reach out to their coordinator, or the principal or the teacher for, help if need be, correct?
Yeah, we just need some time to get the planning and schedules in place. So if you call this week, we won't have those plans in place.
Correct, so
Because
just
the
some
service is
patience
not
going forward for the next couple of weeks so we can work some things out. Okay. And currently, do you know how many are fully remote in the district? Do you have a,
10%,
Somewhere in the 10 to 12% range.
okay, of the whole district?
Whole district.
We would say we've seen that decrease from around 15% when we started the year down to about 10 to 12% as we've gone through the year.
And do we have enough PPE to finish out the year with, we're increasing the number of people in the buildings. Do we have enough PPE to get us through?
We have enough PPE on hand, and if we continue to monitor that supply actively, and we have funds dedicated to replenishing those supplies should we need to.
And so if staff needs additional, they should reach out to your department, Keith, or a building principal and say, I need more, we're going through it quicker.
Either way, we encourage them to go through their building principal, and then their building principal knows, but there's always an open line of communication to central office.
Okay. And I had one more question. But where is it? Bear with me, sorry. I guess that's it. That's it, thank you.
We can come back to you if need be, if you
Yeah, I
come
thought I
across
had
it.
one more, maybe.
Arthur?
Yeah, I don't think I have any additional questions, and we can kind of bat this around all we want, but the bottom line is that the state's going to require us to do this anyway relatively soon, and so I'm glad that we're ahead of the game and planning it out as well as we can. I think the one thing that I'm happy that everybody's going back into school at full time. I think it's what we should be doing, but I do want to make sure that we don't, and I know you guys aren't, but I want to make sure that we don't, we do everything we can to take care of the remote group. Okay, Eric, said it well, and I agree. We're going to have those two models the rest of the year. We're going to have in-person, full, and remote, and while the vast majority of families and kids are going to be coming in here full-time, we need to make sure that the remote families and the kids are taken care of as well as we possibly can. And there will have to be some, I get the fact that there may have to be some changes, but we have to make sure that those changes are minimized to the extent possible, and whatever the changes are, that they're getting the same level of education as the kids that are coming into the class. So I just don't want to, I want that to be a focus, make sure we don't lose track of that as we put this all together. But again, it's going to happen. It's the state's going to require it, and that's okay. And so I think we're doing it the best way that we can. And I know we'll learn more about the finality of how it's going to be after we get the responses back. And so it'll be good to see what happens there and what we have to do, and just to make sure that we communicate that obviously to everybody, and especially the remote families, and take care of them. So that's my main concern.
Great, thanks, Arthur. The benefit and problem with going last is most of my questions have already been answered. A few comments. I just had the same thing that both Eric and Arthur had mentioned with our remote families. Dr. Danny made a point at the beginning of all this to, say we wanted to make sure that our remote students got a Danvers education. That's why we didn't go with the model from the state, because it was so unpredictable. And we wanted to give them a Danvers education. So I just want to make sure, yes, there will probably be some changes, just like there's going to be some changes for the kids that are coming to school full time. So I don't think it's fair for them not to expect any changes, but that consistency, I think, is important, just like it is for in-person learners. So I know you know that. My special education question was answered. This is just more clarifying question. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, and I just want to make sure everyone else understands that starting on March 29th, our current kindergarten through third graders that are now going 4 days a week in person and 1 day a week hybrid will be in 5 days a week. And our current fourth and fifth graders that are currently 2 days remote and 3 days hybrid will be in 5 days a week full time.
Yes.
So the lower grades will go from 4 to 5, and the fourth and fifth grade will go from 2 to 5.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I understood. I just wanted to make sure that was clear for everyone else that might be watching. I'll just mention too about the seniors. And I really just want to thank the seniors that emailed us. I know we all got a lot of emails as a group, and then I know we got some individual emails. And I think advocating for yourself is one of the best skills you can develop. And these kids, for the vast majority of them at least, showed a really good job in advocating for themselves, sending well-written emails that, tried to get their point across. And I think there was a lot of confusion out there maybe this morning when this was first, kind of out there in the wind. So for them to know that they can do a full internship starting the end of April, assuming it's lined up and approved and all of that, not the end of April, after April vacation. I hope that helps some of them that had that concern. So I just, again, wanted to thank them. And then lastly, I just wanted to, once again, thank all the teachers. This has been a crazy year. It's been a year that no one could have predicted, whether a teacher is teaching hybrid or fully remote. You know, what they've had to do, the amount of work they've had to put in has been unlike any other year. So I just once again wanted to publicly thank them all for everything they've done, thank them for their patience. We've had to make decisions up here that we know haven't always been favorable to lots of different groups, but we've made the decisions that we think are the best given the information that we have. But I just wanted to add that in.
Dave, I just had one, just a reminder, for folks, be it students, staff, just a reminder, if you're not feeling good, not to come to school or work, with the same mitigate, the practices of hand washing, wearing a mask, all of that is still in place. We're just, we're getting there, but just a reminder that this is how we're keeping our numbers low, correct, Mark?
Absolutely, that can't be said enough.
Yep. Thank you.
I have one quick comment, Mr. Chair.
Sure, absolutely.
And this is really, it is beyond me. Why on the one hand, you have the state government saying you have to go back full-time, while resisting efforts or resisting requests in some way to actually have a plan to move teachers up on the vaccination schedule. It's still something I can't figure out, and especially when we have good local boards of health that could have helped coordinate some of these projects so that teachers in every town got vaccinated before they decided to go back. It just seems like this has been mishandled, and I echo the chairman's thanks for everything that you have done this year for us. Thank you.
Great. If there is no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. So we would be looking for a vote on the superintendent's recommendation to shift from hybrid to full in-person learning, leaving the full remote option available for families that want to take advantage of it, starting on March 29th for the K through 5 learners, and starting on April 5th for grades 6 through 12. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The recommendation carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank
And
you
thank you.
to the administrative team for everything you've done this year as well. You've been juggling lots and lots of pieces, so thank you for everything that you've done.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. We'll just take a moment as we shift before the next agenda item and thank our guest again from Mark Cleo, our Public Health Director, and our union leadership. It really has been a collaborative team effort.
Thank
the way
you all
we
very
have
much.
today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
All right. So we will move on to unfinished business, the budget.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends the approval of the FY22 budget.
Have a motion?
Motion to accept the final adoption of the FY22 budget.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion regarding the budget, Keith?
So we do have two changes from the budget as it was initially presented at the February meeting. So as we work with the town government and the other local boards to provide a balanced budget for the town of Danvers, there is a reduction of $90,682 from the original proposed budget. These thankfully will not have any programmatic effects. The one reduction comes from an additional retirement that we learned about after we set the initial budget, and the other portion of the savings comes from additional excess revenue, is based on our FY21 circuit breaker, FY20 circuit breaker claim, and funds that we receive in FY21. So those funds were originally gonna help us replenish our kind of savings account for special education, so we'll use those to help offset next year's budget, and any positive results from operations from this year's budget will then be put into that account to kind of backfill it. So we'll continue to work on rebuilding that account while balancing next year's budget.
Questions? Eric?
Yeah, so the budget increase request has been reduced from 2.9% to roughly 2.69%, correct? Total budget request is $44,673,035. You feel you can work within the reductions you're recommending tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Mary Beth? Any questions?
Was that a request, or was that a reduction based upon retirement and?
I would say it's part of our collaborative work with the town administration and the various select board and finance committee to present a balanced budget for the entire town of Danvers. But as we work together as a team, we were not balanced in that budget process when we presented at the February meeting. We knew that we still had some work to do, so as we worked through that to provide a balanced budget, these are recommendations that we went to the town to say that we could make and felt good about without affecting programming or the education of students.
Do you anticipate any additional requests of a reduction any
Not
further?
at this time. We feel, working with Rodney and Steve Bartha, that this is a balanced budget. This is what has been presented to the board in their initial submission and what we will present to the board on Saturday morning at the select board budget hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Arthur?
No questions. Thank you.
Jeff?
No question.
I do not have any questions either. All right, without any further discussion, all those in favor of the revised budget as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Budget carries. And now we are moving to the independent review of Danvers High School culture and climate. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to make a closing statement now that our investigation has concluded, and then Dr. Dana is going to follow up from that. So this is written out for me because it's a page and a half or so here, so please bear with me. Last summer, there was a flurry of media activity and accusations against some student athletes at Danvers High School. At the time, the situation was investigated by the school administration, Danvers Police Department, and other external groups. Once the investigation concluded, disciplinary actions as appropriate were taken. After graduation in August, additional concerns were raised on several social media pages related to Danvers and some personal accounts about members of this team, as well as alleged misconduct by a few Danvers employees. At our meeting on August 11th, 2020, after becoming increasingly concerned, the school committee took two actions. The first being we asked our legal counsel to find an independent investigator with experience in these issues. Based on the recommendation from our school attorney, we hired Allison Kirker from Kirker Pageant, a law firm focused on serving educational institutions throughout Massachusetts. Allison Kirker had no connection to the school's law firm and had never done any work for the town of Danvers. The second action was we instructed Dr. Dana to immediately begin work on improving the culture at Danvers High School, knowing that even if all the concerns raised were not supported by the evidence, there was a growing concern among the community, and efforts to improve culture can only lead to positive change. So as I mentioned, I'm going to speak briefly on the investigation now that it's concluded, and then Dr. Dana is going to explain the multiple steps the administration has taken to work on making positive changes to the Danvers High School culture. As for the investigation, I will say it was extremely thorough and comprehensive. The independent investigator made multiple attempts through a variety of methods to reach out to 73 individuals who claimed to have been directly involved or who she felt could provide insight to the scope of the investigation. Out of those 73 individuals, 21 people agreed to be interviewed. Of those 21 individuals, several proved to have no direct knowledge of relevant facts, circumstances, or events. From her interviews, the investigator was able to gather numerous pieces of documentation and make findings of fact. For the student athletes, the investigator found no evidence that the coaches were aware of the activities taking place in the locker room that were spread through social media last summer. The students involved received consequences at the time. This behavior, however, led to the administration to create comprehensive workshops focused on equity and inclusion that began with nearly 150 winter sports athletes last month and will continue with sports teams each season with a goal of all students taking these workshops and other programs. In addition, procedures will be refined and effectively communicated to ensure that our students receive the appropriate protection and supervision, and Dr. Dana will discuss more about this in a moment. As for the alleged misconduct by employees, these were also investigated thoroughly by the independent investigator, and upon her findings, the appropriate dispositions were made by the administration. I'll remind anyone watching that Superintendent Dana is responsible for personnel decisions and discipline, and it is up to her and her team to decide how to move forward. I know that some people want more details, but upon advice of the school's legal counsel, we are simply not able to provide them. This is not because we are trying to sweep things under the rug, as I have seen posted online, or because there is some type of cover-up. It is simply because when employees, minors, and third-party witnesses are involved, there's a certain level of privacy that individuals are legally entitled to, and by sharing more information, we put the district at risk for potential legal action, as well as jeopardizing our ability to conduct sound investigations in the future. As uncomfortable as this investigation has been for many people in the community, I believe that it was important and was the right thing to do. It took longer than anyone involved had hoped it would, but we felt it was more important to get it right than get it done quickly. Just because this investigation is concluded doesn't mean that there are or will be in the future no issues in the district, and I encourage anyone that is ever made to feel uncomfortable to come forward to a trusted adult, knowing they can do so without repercussions. Now I will turn things over to Dr. Dana to discuss the steps that have taken place and are planned in the future to continue to improve the culture of the district.
Thank you very much. This investigation has revealed actions and behaviors of certain members of our DHS school community that I know do not reflect the core values, missions, and vision that we seek for our school system. We have addressed the personnel and student discipline issues. As the leader of the district, along with our administrative team, we own the responsibility for the next steps to be an inclusive school culture. I will share what we are doing differently to address racist, sexist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, and ableism language and actions. In moving forward as an equity-seeking district in educating our students, we need to rebuild trust and to continue supporting our school community as we learn from our past actions and encourage all to come forward without repercussions if anything makes them feel uncomfortable. We will move forward with providing an inclusive and respectful environment in our schools and in our after-school events and in our community. And this starts with changing our beliefs. As a district, we have been working on courageous caring. We have our core values of caring, quality, commitment, and collaboration, and moving to caring, courageous caring. This is to be an equity-seeking district. This means that we develop safe, supportive, culturally sustaining, and equitable learning environments. And to achieve this goal, we are committed to the concept of courageous caring, mainly really looking at regularly reflecting on our own biases, attitudes, and assumptions, challenging our belief systems through difficult conversations, and being mutually responsible and accountable, and interrupting moments of bias or racism and using these moments to model how to understand and address them going forward to disrupt patterns of inequities. Next, I will share our actionable steps. There are 3 parts: looking at policy, which we have begun today with our policy subcommittee, and I will talk about that as those are the things coming. And then the things that have been in progress we have shared with our school committee and our community at prior school committee meetings, looking at Danvers High School and district-wide. These are all in progress because they are also part of our long-term commitment to be an equity-seeking district. With policy, this includes our policy manual, employee handbook, student handbooks, and contracts. Overall, the independent investigator looked at 11 different policies: non-discrimination policy, relationships with students policy, civil rights and safety, our social networking policy, student welfare policy, staff conduct policy, prohibition of hazing policy, our hazing policy, bullying prevention policy, coaches code of ethic, and our student eligibility, chemical health, alcohol, drug, and tobacco policy. We will be reviewing with the policy subcommittee on a monthly basis and revising our process for communicating our expectations with all faculty, staff, and coaches in the protocols for adult responsibilities. Additionally, we will be making refinements to our student investigation procedures, and we will be reviewing this with our administrators and our school attorney. The last piece in looking at the policy pieces and looking at our contracts, the school will conduct an audit of our co-curricular coaching positions. Next, in the three-part process, Danvers High School. We have been in progress throughout this entire school year, working with our teachers and our students. Our students have started the Danvers High School Anti-Discrimination Club. The Why You Matter campaign has continued. Mr. Thompson referred to our student athlete training. This has begun this year with our winter athletes, and it will continue. It starts up in this coming month now with our fall 2 and then into the spring, and will be part of our work with all Danvers High School students in the fall. These trainings cover important concepts such as how to manage social media presence, and will educate our Danvers High School student athletes and educators, coaches on issues of bullying, hazing, race, implicit bias, identity, and ableism. The first portion of the training includes online self-paced trainings from the National Federation of State High School Associations. These focus on students managing their social media presence as well as preventing bullying, hazing, and inappropriate behaviors. The second portion of the program is an in-person workshops, there are 2 of them, led by our DHS faculty and administration. The topics for the two sessions are building an inclusive community and So You Want to Talk About Race. The training includes videos, readings, activities, and most importantly, small group discussions and debriefing. The goal of these workshops is to begin having the courageous conversation surrounding race and equity in order to begin building a safer and more supportive school environment for all. The last part of this is really looking at the entire district, that we educate all of our students pre-K through 12. This work from the independent investigator really validates the importance of our overall equity work. It is our collective responsibility as educators. We began the school year with implicit bias training, having level-based debriefs around the danger of a single-story video. We have been working on refining our core value of caring into courageous caring. At the elementary level, our educators have been part of culturally responsive read-alouds, windows, doors, and mirrors. At our middle school, the faculty has equity study groups. At Danvers High School, an anti-racism book club with our educators. Mary Wormers has continued our work with our adult SEL study group, unpacking Castle's Equity Enhanced 5 SEL competencies. With our new teachers, off to our Great Start induction program, from our chair from our Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, worked with our teachers this year. We've had administrators and teachers participate in the Equity Institute with Teachers College Reading and Writing Project to continue that work at our elementary and middle school level. In the last month, the administrative team participated in the ADL's training, and we are starting the No Place for Hate program at Danvers High School. Additionally, we have begun striving to become an anti-racist educator study group and have about 80 educators within our district participating in the 5 sessions led by the Curriculum Center with Mary Wormers. Those are the things that really have been in progress through this school year. I'm also pleased to share with the school community and our community that through our Essex County Learning Community Grant and the Center for Collaborative Education, they have been able to secure a $20,000 private donation from a foundation to continue the work with DMS in supporting our equity work. Also, in that work, we have begun to look at the Center for the Study of Sport and Society at Northeastern University. They have programs that have to do with gender identity, looking at our speech and looking at racism, and be able to work with them. They work with small groups of no more than 20 at a time. So that will be part of our work, and I look forward to hopefully sharing more with that at our April meeting. In closing, the vision for the Danvers Public Schools. In 2023, Danvers Public Schools is an inclusive community of learners that is respectful of individual differences, in which all students are valued for their unique strengths, talents, and challenges. And a welcoming environment for students and families is evident, and diversity is valued and celebrated. This has really begun and will continue. It is a long-term commitment as we shift to courageous caring, that we have the belief in each child's ability to succeed. We focus on our social emotional learning for our sense making, that all adults have the responsibility, and that we have an environment that is psychologically safe, that we can listen to each other and speak up for our vision to be our reality. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Certainly a lot going on there, but as I've mentioned many times, culture is not something that shifts overnight, so happy to hear that this is something that is continuing into the future. Comments from the committee. Jeff?
No, I would like to just thank everyone who was involved, particularly those who came forward with statements regarding the actions and brought it to our attention and really highlighted this. You know, we do not shy away from this. It is a responsibility that we have as a committee. We accept it, but thank you to everyone, the administration, teachers, staff, everyone who has been part of this. It is, you know, something that we've needed to do, and I'm glad we were able to do it. So thank you for that.
Mary Beth?
Echo what Jeff said. Want to thank everyone in the district that's working on this, the staff, the administration, but I also, think it can go further into the community, like Lisa was saying. I think we all can do better with this, and we need to do better. So going forward, I think whatever we can do as a community, we should strive and try to do. And just thank you for it, and that's it. Thank you.
Arthur?
And again, not too much. I just want to reiterate what you said, Dave, about the fact that there was relative to individual people and relative to actions that were taken. That's personnel matters. Those are things that we cannot divulge that information, and so that's important to understand. The right to privacy is a major right that we have in this society, and so that's. But I would say that I feel comfortable with what has been done in that respect. So I just want to mention that. Second thing is, it was a very thorough investigation. It took a while. It took a long time. It took, I guess, longer than we had hoped. And also, a lot of people did not want to discuss anything. And so, any type of investigation like this that's not a law enforcement investigation is limited by cooperation. And so, we had cooperation to the extent that we got it. We did a good job. I also want to make a couple of points. Number one, what is happening in our schools? It's not just happening in our schools; it's happening everywhere. So it's not like we have some kind of different thing going on in our schools. But what we can do is try to just bring everybody to be respect everybody else's opinion. Treat everybody like they want to be treated, and try to just get along in that way. And I think that's kind of what we're going towards. I also want to just to reiterate that I was one that didn't want the training to just, and I think we all were, but I didn't want it just to be athletes, because it's not just athletes. I mean, it started with the athletes as far as the training, but the training is going to everybody, and that's where it should be. I want to thank everybody involved in the investigation, and I want to thank everybody for that did decide to volunteer to provide information. Thank you for doing that, and let's just go forward and make this place a better place for everybody.
Great, thanks, Arthur. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I sense a real commitment, and I think the administration is committed to getting their arms around a problem. I think that the first step to that is recognizing that we have an issue. And I think sometimes in Danvers, And because we love the community, because we think well of this community, we like to think that we are immune to some of the problems in the greater world, but we are not. And when it comes to the high school, all of our schools really, but particularly you see this at the high school, I don't think that there is anything harder on students in the high school today, or any place, than having to feel like they are the other, like they don't belong, whether it's because of their race, religion, sexual orientation, how they identify. To feel that exclusion can turn what should be a very positive experience into, a frightening or awful experience almost every day. It was that way, unfortunately, when Arthur and I were in school in the dark ages. It gets better sometimes, and we have certainly gotten better in some ways. But it's still, there is a proclivity in high school to try and find ways to separate oneself, to look at a way in which you might be better than somebody else. And the simple truth is that you are not no one. We are not. None of us are better than anyone else simply because we happen to be white, or we happen to be of a certain religion, or we happen to be of a certain sexual orientation. The only thing that matters, whether you're in high school or whether you're an adult, is the quality of someone's character. And Mary Beth touched on this too. We try and, in the school department, over the years, we are trying to increase our social and emotional learning to address students' social and emotional needs. And we deal with students who have anxiety, and we've tried to put programs in place for students who have to be out of school and try and come back. And we try and provide more social work and more psychological services. And now, on a regular basis, now we find ourselves trying to, but trying to deal with students who are faced with racism and or homophobia, and those students who might see the world through a lens that, causes them to treat other people differently. And we try and do a lot of different things, and schools are expected to do an awful lot of different things now. But the truth is, Mary Beth said, is that this is not just a problem or an issue or something that has to be the focus of attention in our schools. Human beings come into the world without hate, without prejudice. It's something that is learned along the way. And I'm not trying to say, by the way, that parents are out there teaching their children about racism or acting in ways that encourage their children to develop what we would consider abhorrent ideas. Maybe some, but that's not my point. My point is there are an awful lot of challenges in parenting today in terms of what students see on the internet, what they learn from each other, what they're exposed to from leaders who should sometimes be better. That helps color their view of the world, and sometimes this comes out in ways that students treat each other. And so my call is for parents to really have tough conversations with your students, to help us, and as a society, to look inward into ourselves and consider our own prejudices, which frankly we all have. This is a community problem. This is a systemic problem. It's not just about students. And we need the entire community's help to simply keep that ball moving forward to the point where every person is treated with the dignity they deserve as a human being, without reference to labels, but simply with reference to their character. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Eric. All right. We're going to move along to something that's usually at the very beginning of our agenda, items of interest from the superintendent.
Thank you. I would like to take just 45 seconds to show you one other video that makes the connection to our work. And this is from a student at the Great Oak Elementary School who, and we have shared that the Great Oak Elementary School and working with their parents, so looking at Black History Month, they invited community members, parents, and children, and teachers to do a read aloud. So let's listen.
Inspired of Black History Month, I'm going to be reading a little inspiring words, a little poem that Maya Angelou wrote. If you're going down a road and don't like what's in front of you, and look behind you and don't like what you see, get off the road and create a new path. So maybe, what do you guys think she's talking about? Maybe she's talking about if you're doing something bad and you don't know, or if you're doing something bad and you know you're not supposed to be doing it, maybe start over again or make a new path, like she said. But yeah, that's what I was reading, inspired by Black History Month.
Thank you. So Devea De Silver, we thank her for reading that poem and for the Great Oak Elementary School, the community coming together and thinking that we're also in now Women's History Month and Women International Day. So
Correct.
Looking at our female students and sharing there. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Tara, for doing that. Items of interest to the school committee. Anyone have anything they'd like to add?
I have one actually, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
go for it, Eric.
And it's funny, the theme continues. On February 23rd, I attended by Zoom a meeting of the Association of School Committees Division 10 district, their program on inclusion, diversity, and equity. And the featured speaker was a Dr. Khalees Warnham, who is I think Lisa knows about her, I guess.
I do, yes.
She is absolutely terrific. I know that she is actually the head of the director of educational equity for the Brookline Public Schools and does consulting work with other public schools. And I did want to say extremely interesting, extremely engaging. And if we haven't had her here in Danvers as part of what we're doing with our teachers especially, it might be terrific to have her come and do a presentation because she is fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Anyone else? All right. And I don't believe we have any items of interest from our community since we don't have anyone in our audience right now. Our student representative also could not be here tonight, so we do not have his report that I'm aware of, correct?
Right. Thank you very much.
So we're going to move down to information from the superintendent.
Thank you. One item this evening, that's our monthly facility update with Keith Taverna.
So just a brief update on the
More
Smith School
visuals.
as we do monthly. We do have a few pictures to share. So this is a picture of a second floor classroom. So this is one of our mock-up classrooms. You'll see the ceiling is in. Underneath that paper is actually the finished floor. The accent wall has been painted. The blue hanging down is actually covering the HVAC. All the lighting is in, so this is kind of a glimpse into what a room will look like with no furniture in it. So we're excited about the progress coming along, and Mary will just go through a couple more pictures. So this is again a hallway on the second floor. This is kind of one of the skinny, narrow, just passage hallways. On the other side of the building are large, wide hallways that include collaboration zones. This is a picture of the outside of the gymnasium. There's a polycarbonate type of glass that's on the top. It's actually similar to what we use for our desk shields in the lunchrooms. A similar material that's resistant to different balls hitting it, but lets in light, but in a filtered manner to be good for sports. And then our last picture is the back side of the academic wing. So you'll see the windows are installed, all the metal panels are in, and some of the landscaping, those rocks will be part of the finished landscaping. So the project is really coming along. We're excited for it to open next September. We are still on time in that aspect, and as soon as the school year gets out, we'll actually keep going on the process. Furniture deliveries are coming up, and so we're excited to see this continue to progress.
Great. Thank you, Keith. Any questions for Keith?
When do we get a tour?
When would you like a tour?
Anytime.
So we should arrange for a tour. We can do that before our next meeting now that the weather's turning nice. And we are excited, which I don't even know if we formally announced to faculty, but we're gonna be doing faculty tours before April vacation as well. So we'll set up a time over the next month to have everybody come over and.
That's great.
spend through.
Thanks.
I'm sure they're excited to see it,
Yes.
having watched the construction. All right, moving along to new business.
The first item is the MASC resolution in regarding the MCAS, and I believe school committee has received some inquiries about that, so a discussion for school committee.
Yes, we've received half a dozen or so, I would say, inquiries about this. I know Eric did something when he was at the MCAS meeting, and Mary Beth has a resolution, I believe, to share tonight.
Yes, so I just want to thank everyone that sent us emails expressing their thoughts regarding the MCAS. Like Dave said, Eric attended the MASC conference as our delegate back in November, where MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, presented a resolution on MCAS and high-stakes testing. That resolution passed. But for Danvers, I make a motion that I move the Danvers School Committee vote to support resolution number 1, MCAS and high-stakes testing, which was approved by the delegates to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees by a vote of 112 to 9, with 2 abstentions at the MASC annual meeting on November 7th. I further move that the superintendent of schools be instructed to inform Governor Baker, Education Secretary Jeffrey Riley, and our state legislation delegation, State Rep Sally Kearns, and Senator Joan Lovely of our position in favor of canceling the MCAS test this year. And the resolution reads as follows. Be it resolved that MASC rejects and calls for the students of 2022 who missed their 10th grade MCAS testing to be required to make it up in the 2020-21 school year or ever. We demand that those students be held harmless for not taking the MCAS, and that their graduation requirements shall be determined by locally controlled voices of the school committee and school administration within remaining graduation requirements for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Additionally, we reiterate our call for a moratorium on high-stakes testing for the 2020-21 school year, so all students can benefit from their time being focused on direct instruction. And we urge the legislature to enact a moratorium on high-stakes testing for 3 years. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second discussion. Mary Beth, do you want to continue?
I just wanted to clarify, I know that the federal government has, instructed states to continue this testing, and I do know originally that the state of Massachusetts was going to do MCAS testing this spring, but last week, I think Friday morning actually postponed it, didn't give a date. Know that I think they still are trying to do it this year, but I know that the state has until the fall as well from the guidance from the government. But I think where MASC had this as a resolution in November and it was approved, I think as a school committee, we should also voice that we as a school committee individually are also in support of it. Thank you.
Eric?
There was overwhelming support for this, Mr. Chairman, at the convention, and I voted for it. If there ever was a year to allow people a little breathing room and focus on the students coming back into the classroom and getting sort of the educational piece back on track without the pressure of long-term standardized testing, it seems to me this is the year. Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Sorry.
I agree. Having read through the counter positions that have gone through, and ordinarily I favor having more information on student learning, understanding where there may be deficiencies in our program and areas where we excel. Quite frankly, I'm particularly interested in those, but I really don't see how doing an MCAS test this year in these areas will particularly provide value to us in these areas. So that's why I support this as well. Thank you.
Arthur?
Yeah, there's really no, this is one of the most common sense-based resolutions I've heard in a long time. And there really is no, there's always 2 sides, 3 sides, 5 sides to every issue, but I don't even see that where you can come up with a reasonable position supporting having tests this year. They would be essentially useless and also wasting valuable time where we can focus on the things that the kids need to learn that they have had to not learn because of the lack of time in school. So yeah, 100% absolutely support this.
Yeah, and I agree with all of you as well. I think MCAS are questionable on a normal year, and this year was far from normal. Derek's point, if there was a year to not have it, this is certainly it. The kids, are coming back to school. They need to be, learning from their teachers, getting that social emotional support they need. They don't need the stress and the unneeded time spent on an MCAS test. So I am in full support of this resolution. So with that being said, we have a motion and a second for the resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The resolution carries.
Thank you. Next, we have our program of studies for this year. Our first one, for a first reading, the superintendent recommends the Holton Richmond Middle School Program of Studies for a first reading.
So moved.
Thank you. And we have Adam Federico, our principal, that's here to give a quick, I think it's way over there, sorry, a quick overview for you.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight. No major changes proposed for our program of studies this year, but we just want to highlight 5 points that I think are worth mentioning. First, we are currently evaluating implementing a new mathematics program at the middle school. We've used Connected Math program for many years, but our department, families, students, we feel it's time to investigate a new program. So our math teachers are currently engaged in a process to identify the new program to be implemented the coming fall. Second, we will be looking to restore our visual arts workshop in grade 7 only for next year. So that program will run in grades 7 and 8. And the program ran this year just in grade 8. And then additionally, related to that change, we'll be increasing the number of art courses that are offered overall in grade 6 for next year as well. Third, we anticipate restoring our choral program for next year. We did not have our choral teacher this year, but we anticipate Ms. Evanchek's return and anticipate offering a full choral program at all 3 grade levels for next year. We're going to just do some renaming of some of our drama courses to better align with their focus not only on drama but also public speaking. And so we feel those names will help better help students and families understand what those courses are all about. And lastly, we'll be looking to restore our RISE block. And in particular, I think of note for this year is that the focus of our RISE blocks for next year will be on restoring learning habits, executive functioning skills, and some of the things that were perhaps affected by some of the loss that we've experienced during this pandemic. So we feel that'll be a critical time to help kids next year get back on track and hopefully recover as quickly as possible as we head into a more traditional school year. So those are the major points for the middle school.
Great. Thank you, Adam. Arthur?
The only question I have is, what are we looking to accomplish with the change in the math program?
Yeah, so I think we want to find a program that's more aligned with the standards that I think provides just maybe better balance in terms of how some of the skills are taught. We've, over the years, I think, used that program as a baseline, but we've found that we've needed to individualize it or tailor it more to our needs, and we feel that, just with all the different options out there and where we are as a school, this is sort of the last stone that we haven't overturned yet in terms of how we can raise our mathematics achievement. We just feel it's time for a new program. This program's been in place since before I was at the school, and we just think it's time for something fresh and something different that is just better aligned to the standards and better aligned to the needs of our school.
Okay,
So,
great.
time for a
Thanks.
change.
All right, great. That's all I have, Adam. Thanks.
Yep.
Great, Mary Beth?
Nothing at this time.
Jeff?
No questions, thanks.
Eric?
Just to pick up a little bit on what Arthur said, the program that we're moving to in terms of the math, just a little history, has it been around a while? Other districts have tried it?
We haven't selected a new program yet.
Okay.
We're in that process right now. Our whole math department is engaged in looking at different options, and they'll come forward with we'll come forward with a recommendation.
Good.
And next steps.
It's going to be interesting to see what that recommendation is. I'm interested in what the new choice will be. Thank you.
Great, and I don't have any questions, just, well, I don't think we've seen you since the big announcement that you're going to be moving up in the fall and going to be the high school principal, so I just wanted to congratulate you, thank you for everything you've done in the middle school, and look forward to seeing everything you're going to do at the high school.
Thank you. Very excited for that next challenge, so thank you very much.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Adam.
Need a vote, Mr. Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. We need a vote for the, did we do a motion in a second?
We
It's
did.
getting late here,
The
sorry.
vote would be approval for first reading.
All right. All those in favor of approving the studies for first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none? The first reading passes.
Thank you. And now moving on to Danvers High School. For a first reading, the superintendent recommends the DHS Program of Studies for a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And tonight we have Amy Gerard that will provide that overview for Danvers High School. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So we didn't have many course changes this year. We did add courses associated with our early college pathway. There are 3 courses within that pathway. That's a partnership with North Shore Community College where students can be enrolled at DHS and have a dual enrollment with North Shore Community College. There's a Introduction to Higher Education course, Composition 1, and a math course. So ELA math, and then an overall kind of introduction to the college experience, which for many students could be super helpful. There are 2 more policy type changes within the program of studies. The first is removing virtual high school as an option for students. We were originally at our first pass of the budget last year at this time, we're removing virtual high school. We actually did not end up removing it from the program of studies, which ended up to be fortuitous as we needed it to support some of our remote students this year. Typically in each year, VHS has about 4 to 5 students that take a course, and oftentimes fewer finish for a variety of reasons. Additionally, with the agreement that we had with VHS, it takes up a 0.2 FTE of one of our staff to teach a VHS course. We're really feeling pretty confident that we can offer a wide array of courses in-house and also take that 0.2 FTE and use it for our own students versus students kind of out in the virtual world. And it also saves us about $8,000. The other piece is assistantships. Assistantships were kind of put in place to help or assist teachers do a variety of functions in the classroom, make copies, file, those types of things. As the pandemic kind of unfolded, we felt like that was not a good offering for our students, particularly these are for seniors only. So we did not offer those this year. We're finding that with everything moving to electronic nature of things, that teachers aren't really needing assistance anymore, and we prefer our students to have a full schedule their senior year. Obviously, if they're fully scheduled or have met their graduation requirements, a study hall is still an option on a case-by-case basis, but felt that it's super important to have students have full schedules. So again, 2 policy changes and a few courses added in with that North Shore Community College piece.
Great, thank you, Amy.
Yep.
Jeff?
No questions, thanks.
Eric?
No.
Sorry to wake you.
You're jumping around, Mr. Chair. Amy, I guess what I'm hearing you say is that the virtual high school really isn't serving a high enough student population to make it worthwhile versus what we can do ourselves, basically.
Right, and in one instance, we had a lot of students taking AP Environmental Science, so we just started offering it ourselves. And so that course has become super popular. In the last, this is our 2nd year offering it, but even in the 2 years, we have more students in that than we were using through VHS. So that's just one example of kind of how we've leveraged that experience.
Sure. And in terms of ending the assistantships, sounds like it makes sense. It's hard to know whether the students involved are really getting too much out of it. The teachers are probably, at the time, getting some good assistance. But I do hope that we will continue to look for opportunities, especially for students who have an interest in education going forward, to allow them to sort of get a feel for what it feels like to be in front of the classroom or helping out in a classroom. So if opportunities arise, I hope we can still take advantage of it, but I'm okay with what you're suggesting.
For sure, and we have a pretty robust Tomorrow's Teachers program that really kind of supports some of our elementary schools in particular, particularly at the end of the year. And so we'll continue to really support that program because we want to add to the pipeline of educators for sure.
Excellent, thank you. No other
Welcome.
questions, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Arthur?
Nope, I'm good.
Mary Beth?
Thank you, Amy. Can you just explain the early college a little bit more, how that works?
So we actually just got word the other day that we've been awarded the pathway, which was I would say 2 years of work in progress to try to figure out how we were going to do it. So we essentially have met with North Shore College and aligned our curriculum, or we've aligned it between what we teach and what they offer. This is an opportunity for students to really dig into a college level course and maybe get an experience that they may not necessarily have access to in a normal set of circumstances. We're really excited because for some students that may not think college is an option for them, or maybe they've never had, I'm a first generation college student, so for kids like I was, it's an opportunity to kind of experience that firsthand. What we saw last year with our higher education courses, we had a lot of students, particularly seniors, who all of a sudden understood that they could do that. They could have a post-secondary experience, which was really great. And so that's our hope, is to kind of leverage those 3 classes to catapult some kids who may not think that they want to do post-secondary or may not think that they can into that experience.
So how does a student get into that?
So there's some qualifying kind of coursework that they have to take prior to. They have to, I believe, score a specific score on the MCAS, or they can take the AccuPlacer, which at the community college level, that's kind of their placement test. And then there's some teacher recommendations. So it's kind of a combination of things, and the student wanting to do it as well. What we're continuing kind of to work on is, in a normal year, we have kind of that waterfall schedule that works, and oftentimes colleges are kind of in a static time. So that's kind of the logistical piece that we're going to need to work through. But we were able to work that out last spring, and we actually were able to finish it out even after we closed because of COVID.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
That's it, Dave.
Okay, excellent. No, I have no questions. I think the virtual high school had its place and did well at the time, but if, things change and we can do it in-house, let's do it in-house.
Thank you.
So, thanks, Amy. Now we need a vote on this, the high school studies for the fall. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Passes? All right. let's
Thank
see
you,
where we
Amy and
are.
Adam, thank you.
Yeah, thank you both very much. Now we're going to move on to the annual review, the superintendent's contract. Do we
Well,
need-
Mr. Chairman, we had discussed this would be a year where we did and I don't want to say informal evaluation, but yeah, we're not, rather than work out the usual form that we have done in great detail, especially given everything that was happening this year, that we would move to a 2-year cycle, which is allowed, I believe, by the Department of Education. And so really, it's more of a commentary review of the superintendent. So I'm happy to start. I
Great.
would say that, this has been, and this really, first of all, so the public understands, Lisa's salary compared to the other department heads, most raises go in effect in July in whatever fiscal year we're talking about. So normally, a department head gets a raise that becomes effective in July. In this case, it would have been July 2020. Because of how the cycle we have the superintendent on in terms of review, the salary that we are talking about or will talk about tonight ends up reflecting really what could have happened, what normally would happen back in July. So we're talking about the superintendent's salary for fiscal year 2021. But, it is, I think it does us well to talk a little bit, each of us, in terms of the superintendent's performance, even though I'm doing a formal review. Certainly, this has been, and this includes fiscal year 21, given that everything started to happen in March. This has been a remarkable year with which you've had to deal, you and your team, have had to deal with something that we have never experienced before. And while there have been bumps along the way, I have seen a tremendous effort on your part and the part of your team, but on your part directly, to try and communicate with parents who have reached out to you to ask questions, to take their concerns seriously, and to try and keep a very steady hand on the wheel for this school district. And I think your experience and everything you learned in the years leading up to this really prepared you to do an excellent job, and I think you have done an excellent job. There was no way anyone could make everybody happy in terms of how this year went. It's just not possible. But I think your efforts have really, no one can say you didn't try and answer everybody's concerns, take everyone's concerns seriously, reach out to parents on a regular basis, answer questions, listen to all stakeholders, work with the teachers, work with your team. And kudos to your team. Keith, you've been one of the people sort of running point on the whole coronavirus issue and mitigation, and Mary keeping the curriculum in a logical way and figuring out how we're going to get the job done. And it's a credit, I think, Lisa, to you picking the right team and working with them and giving them direction, but also then letting them do their jobs. So I think you've done an excellent job this year. And,
Thank you.
I think what we should do, Mr. Chair, is just briefly let others comment, and
Sure.
then I'll make a motion.
Sounds great. Jeff?
Great, thanks. Yeah, I would agree with many of those comments and the assessment. Certainly Lisa for this year. I was going to comment on the team as well. I mean, we know these are extraordinary times. We've talked about it significantly, but what we have been able to do this year would not have been done without a full team. And you've not only built a team, but you've coordinated with everyone, motivated them, cajoled, I'm sure, in certain ways too. But so for that, I think you're certainly to be commended. The other thing that struck me this year in particular was there were several comments you made, and you didn't really always say them explicitly, but it came through in everything you did, which was really trying to avoid conflict between different ideas, parents, even people on your own team, right, who had different ideas as to how we were going to get through this. And so avoiding that conflict, trying to find the best solutions for the majority of our students, I think, in particular, is something to be commended for this year. So there's a whole lot of other things we could go through in terms of the metrics and where we're at, but those are just the two things that stuck out to me this year. And so for that, I want to say thank you for the work this year as well.
Thank you very much.
Great. Mary Beth, with your brand new microphone.
Thank you, Ben.
I don't know if you can hear me. No, certainly this has been an extraordinary year for everyone. I want to thank Lisa for the work that she's put in. It's been 24/7 since a year ago, working for the district, for the students, for the staff, with her team that she has. We're very fortunate in Danvers to have a team that works well together. There are districts that have teams that do not work well together at all, and it's harder to get things done. I want to thank you for working with the team, working with all the parties involved, and families. And you're open to having people call you, reach out to you, and doing as best you can for everyone. You balance it. I just want to thank you for all the hard work and your team and the staff and the community and the students. But thank you for your leadership. You've been here 17 years as a superintendent. You're one of the top 2, I think, longest serving superintendents in the state, I believe. Somewhere up there. I do remember last year but I want to thank you for all your hard work, and that's just what I have to say. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Arthur?
Well, I could repeat what everybody said, but I've made a 14-year career of trying not to do that, so I'm not going to do it. I just want to reiterate that I agree with what the others have said. And the one thing I will point out, and I want to point out, is I think that from what I saw, you made an effort to kind of talk to anybody that wanted to talk to you over the past school year. And there's a lot of people that wanted to talk to you that coming from all kinds of different directions, and those many of them not been the easiest conversations to have either, because you had to let people know that they couldn't get exactly what they wanted. So it's a difficult job, and I think that you really made an effort to reach out, as did the administration on a whole. So again, I agree with what's been said so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it seems inappropriate just to say ditto, because, I echo what everyone has said. I will say, I certainly had the opportunity to work a lot closer with you this year than in the past, and even, in the past when I was chair, because of everything that's going on. And to echo what my colleagues have said, anytime an email has come in or a phone call has come in, you've said, let's set up a time to talk. And you've talked probably to more parents this year than probably your collection of every other year prior to that, which I think is really important for people to know that they can have a conversation with the superintendent is critical. And I thank you for doing that. I know the people that you've spoken to what my colleagues have said, they might not have agreed with every decision. We certainly know they haven't agreed with every decision we've made, but that's part of the job is, making the decision that you think is right at the time. So thank you for working with us and for everything that you've done this last year during this crazy time to keep the ship afloat and heading in what we hope is the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, Eric, I believe you're going to make a motion?
Well, yeah, I think obviously we annually talk about salary. I think, balancing the factors, Lisa, there's obviously we're happy with the job you did. We appreciate the job you did. At the same time, we know, even from the recent budget change that we had to make, there are fiscal considerations in this year and even last year and going forward. So I am going to make a motion that we increase the superintendent's salary by 2%. The increase would be $3,859.17. This increase really keeps Lisa in sort of the midpoint of superintendents, many of whom don't have her experience, but that's the way it works out in terms of the market and how salaries work. So, and I also would move at the same time, included in my motion, that we extend your contract for another year to keep that distance going, basically. So that would be my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Great. We have a motion and a second discussion. Arthur.
Nope, I think that we've already said what we've said, and I think Eric made the point of the salary being, again, around the midpoint of superintendents. So I agree with it. I think it's the right thing to do.
Mary Beth?
No, all set. Thank you.
Jeff?
I agree. No comments.
Eric, anything else to add? Anything else to add? Okay. And I would agree as well. As reference, you're at the midpoint from a salary from a dozen or so superintendents in the area, coming with a lot more experience than the vast majority of them. So I'm happy to support this motion. So that being said, all those in favor of Eric's motion?
Well, if I may, typically, Mr. Chairman, we ask the superintendent for a comment before we, I'm sorry.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your kind words this evening, and really greatly and so grateful for the partnership that we have for school committee and superintendent working together. It makes a huge difference because we have the same goals and the same priorities, the same core values, and the support for our families and the education of the students here in Damask. And I think an indication of your words tonight of the two most important things to me are the relationships that we build and then the team. So thank you for recognizing that tonight.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, all those in favor of the motion to increase the superintendent's salary by 2% and extend her contract by a year, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? That carries. Congratulations, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to homeschool requests.
We actually have one other one in there.
Oh, we do?
In between, yes.
Oh, we do.
So this evening, we also bring forward our assistant superintendent's contracts for an update, which is in your packet. And let me just go to that part of the agenda. Okay. Just to be able to give a overview of it. For our assistant superintendents, they have had, from the last time, a 4-year contract. They're in their 3rd year of their contract, so I would be recommending to our school committee that we add an additional 3 years to their contract, and that would bring their contract to June 30th of 2025. There are 2 additional pieces of looking for updates in their contract. The term of their contract, that in going forward on or before June 30th of the 2nd year of this agreement, or any period of extension, that either may raise the question of extending the contract. So similar to the superintendent's contract, that on a yearly basis, school committee looks to adding a year. In your discussion, that the assistant superintendent's contract on an every 2-year basis, that the school committee would also have that discussion. And finally, adjusting a part of their contract for the technology piece, to move it from a reimbursement on a monthly basis to a monthly stipend that would be put through the same process of $110 per month for the use of the technology, mainly their cell phone.
Okay, great. Good, a motion for that.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Arthur?
Only, we just talked about what we thought about Lisa's job over the past year, and we talked about the team. And so what goes for Lisa goes for the team. And in their own areas, they've done just as much work and worked just as hard. And most importantly, the 3 work very closely together. So I'm very much in support of this motion.
Great, thank you. Mary Beth?
I highly support it as well. Thank you. Thank you to Keith and Mary for their hard work as well. Again, 24/7 job over the last year, and the dedication that they all have to the students in the community. Thank you.
Jeff? Yep, absolutely. I echo all of that, and the importance here is to be consistent with the assistants with the overall superintendent, and so this methodology to extend contracts is well deserved as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Eric?
I have nothing but good things to say about the whole team, and I think I mentioned earlier, very impressed by the way you've handled your roles this year, and really helped to keep things moving along. So kudos to you and thank you, and yeah, I'm all for this.
Great, I am for it as well. I'll just touch on the technology cell phone thing, just so people understand. Right now, you guys are like breaking up your cell phone bill and, putting it in piecemeal to get the average of the $110 in reimbursement for what you're using. So this is just going to save a lot of time and effort just to have a standard flat fee for your cell phone bill. So I think that makes sense. Before we do our vote, Mayor and Keith, anything you'd like to add?
No, just thank you. The school committee really is about the team. I think we enjoy working as a team and around the collaboration, so happy to be here in Danvers and working on behalf of the students and families.
Yep, just thank you so much for your support, too, for all the work that we're doing.
It is a team effort, absolutely. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion presented by the superintendent for the assistant superintendent's contract, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is our homeschool. The superintendent recommends the approval of the notice of intent for a homeschool education for the 2021 school year.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the homeschool proposal, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Those pass.
Thank you. And then fundraising requests. The superintendent recommends the approval of the fundraising events that have been submitted through March 8th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on fundraising? Hearing none. All those in favor of the fundraising request approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Fundraising passes. And let's see here. Let me get out of fundraising and on to order of business, communications.
Thank you. We have our North Shore Education Consortium, the annual report, and then also the consortium has begun working on budget as we are. So the board heard the first reading of the budget at our meeting last week. So we will be moving through that process, and I will keep you updated.
Great. Eric, any update on legislation?
I had the pleasure of speaking with Representative Sally Kearns earlier today, and we had a pretty wide-ranging discussion on things that are happening. And I know that she had a session with the North Shore superintendents very recently, Lisa, and she's aware that the major concerns of your group is the full funding for the Student Opportunities Act, making sure that enrollment projections are used properly in terms of state funding, the MCAS co-sponsored legislation. She mentions that she has advocated for vaccinating teachers sooner by moving them up the queue. And though as I say, the administration was somewhat resistant, with a lot of push from Sally and others, that he's at least moved up, to some extent, moved them up in the queue, so to speak. Let's see, she commented to me that she felt that revenue projections for the coming year were actually pretty good right now. They're not, it's hard to say that they're firing on all cylinders, but in general, we're not seeing the large dip that we thought was possible. And in terms of working with the governor, Sally went on to mention that, excuse me, that Beth Contos, who lives in Danvers and is the, I believe she's the head of the Mass Federation of Teachers, will be meeting with the governor tomorrow, and again, trying to, in terms of especially inoculation for teachers, vaccines for teachers will be, so Sally's hopeful that there'll be more good news on that front soon. And she was thankful for the opportunity to fill us in on what's happening, and I said at some point, we would try and have her come in at a time that's convenient at one of our meetings and answer questions and talk with us about what's going on the Hill.
That would be great. Mary Beth, Deep.
Our monthly meeting will be this Wednesday, March 10th, virtually. Folks wishing to attend can reach out to our administrative assistant, Maria Diacara, at central office, and she can send a link to the meeting, but other than that, that's about it right now. Thank you.
Great. Jeff, Danvers Cares.
So Danvers Cares, I guess the big news, I guess most folks know, is we sadly must say goodbye to Lila Herod. She is going to be doing a terrific trek on the Appalachian Trail, and we'll be doing that for the next several months. So in the interim, Andy, I believe, is the point of contact, Andy St. Pierre, for matters. But Lila has done a fantastic job, I would say over the past few years, as far as what Danvers Cares has been able to evolve into and continue. I would say particularly in this pandemic, right? There has been a need for a lot of the things that we talk about in terms of Danvers Cares, right? In terms of social emotional learning, in terms of community, in terms of faith, in terms of a lot of the things that we review. And so, I would just like to personally thank Lila for her efforts and her work on behalf of the school committee. So thank you, Lila.
Great. Yes, and I believe Lila's last day is Friday, if anyone wants to reach out and wish her well as she heads on her big adventure. Dr. Dana, CPAC.
I do not have an update this evening, but I will let you know as to their next meeting that they have.
Okay.
Thank you.
You've been busy with other things?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
I did miss that part, and I apologize for, I may even be able to look it up while we're still meeting.
Okay, no
I'll
problem.
let you know.
Policy, Arthur?
Well, we had a meeting today, and we've discussed most of it, I think, already. We talked about transportation, which Keith went over earlier. We talked about the internships and the capstone, which, again, has been talked about at length tonight. We also talked about some calendar matters, which is going to come up at our next meeting, so we'll leave it till then.
Great. And we'll likely have another policy meeting prior to our next school committee meeting, I believe.
Yes.
Great.
Jump back to CPAC.
Yep.
Thank you.
They have their
Team effort.
information session on transition planning for youth ages 14 to 22 coming up on the 18th of March.
Okay.
There's a link on their Facebook account to the information.
So the Danvers CPAC Facebook account has all of the info.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Eric, Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion.
I was unable to attend the February meeting. March meeting is in a couple of weeks, and I hope, Lisa, I don't know if we have a date for the education subcommittee yet.
We do not, but that is on my list.
Sure.
Sometimes it goes from week to week, but yes.
I hear you.
So if you can let them know, and I will be in touch with Eileen to set that meeting up.
I sure will.
Thank you.
Great. And Eric, we're going to stay with you for the minutes.
Yes, I move, Mr. Chairman, that we approve and release the minutes of the February 8th, 2021 regular meeting and workshop, and the February 23rd, 2021 regular meeting, as well as approve and not release the minutes for the February 8th, 2021 and February 23rd, 2021 executive sessions.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, none. The minutes carry. Budget. Keith, you are up.
The monthly budget report for February, we're a little over halfway through the year, and we spent a little over half of our money. So that's always my good mid-year check-in point, so we are in good shape for this year. I would like to thank Deep, who made a generous donation to the DECA program to help support their competition season, and then to Home Depot in Danvers, Christina Lepresti and Brian Thompson, who might have a relation to one of our Smith School teachers, for their mask and sanitizer donation to the district. So thank you to Home Depot for helping support the schools.
Great. Yes, thank you, Home Depot. Any questions on the budget for Keith? All right, we'll stick with you, Keith, for personnel.
The monthly personnel report, you will see for our 2-3 return to full in-person at 6 feet, a number of staffing changes there, along with fall 2 coaching appointments.
Okay, great. Any questions on personnel? Okay. As far as my laptop goes here, doesn't go down any further on the agenda. So, Mary Beth?
Just a reminder, are we meeting with the selectmen on Saturday? Are we all invited? How is that going?
Saturday is our budget meeting with the selectmen.
Yes.
It's
And I
on my
believe it's at 3.
calendar. I don't know what the
So
protocol is.
I believe at the moment it would be the 3, so it would be Dave representing as the school committee chair and Keith and myself, looking at, again, the number of people in the room at this time. But I believe, Keith, we're at 9 a.m.?
Yes, 9 a.m.
So 9 a.m. and it would be live on DCAT.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right, we need my favorite motion of the night.
Motion
Oh.
to it? Oh, next meeting.
Thanks, Diane. Next meeting, before my favorite motion of the night. Our next meeting is April 12th.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Good night, Danvers.